Well, good evening to you. Happy to sit in for Craig Way. I'm Roger Wallace. Longhorn Weekly now turns into the spring sports edition, and tonight we are focusing on University of Texas men's and women's track and field as we are at an important point in the season. The indoor season is behind us. The outdoor season is in front of us. The Texas Relays, one of the greatest track and field events in the nation, is underway at Texas, and we are happy to be joined by men's and women's track and field and cross-country coach Mario Sategna. 10 years as an assistant, Mario. What have been, and pardon the pun, but the hurdles of taking over as the head coach of not only the men's program but the women's program?
Well, first of all, we're very fortunate to inherit such a great men's and women's program, and it's been obviously nonstop since since June of last year. We were trying to solidify a few things, rounding out the recruiting calendar. We started a new one, and then it's been hit the ground running ever since. So we're just, we're fortunate, we're excited. We've come off a successful, what we feel, indoor campaign and look forward to the outdoor season. Well,
let's go back and talk about the indoor campaign. First of all, the Big 12 championships where your women win, your men finish in second place. I assume pleased with all of that.
Well, the men were the defending champions, and going into a conference setting, it's can come down to a few points. And for us, we ended up 4 points short. We had a few key people that weren't a part of that. So we'll look to rebound outdoors where we feel like we'll be a little bit stronger when we start adding the decathlon, some of the longer throws, some of the longer distance events. On the women's side, they were runner-up last year to the eventual national champions at Kansas. And so to get them on the podium and bringing home that team title was a very important step for our program and moving forward, and one that I feel like really helped them when we went to the NCAA indoor meet 2 weeks later.
Well, that was in Albuquerque, and boy, you talk about a game of inches with your women's program, and it comes down to that final 4x4 relay with Oregon and Florida also in the mix. But that's just such a heart-stopping event as it is, and what was on the line made it even more so.
Very much. We went in ranked number 5, and obviously the goal was to bring home a team trophy, to be one of the top 4. To be in the mix going into the last event. If you're a track and field fan, it couldn't have been any better. When you're kind of in the trenches behind the scenes, it was a little nerve-wracking. But I think when the ladies stepped out there, they knew what was at stake. And Oregon has now won 5 national championships in a row. So they knew what was on the line for them too. And on that day, they were just the better team. And it wasn't from lack of effort because we had some great performances.
It comes down to the final event. If folks aren't familiar with what happened, and Oregon touches out or edges out Texas at the finish, and not only for the gold in that event, but for the national championship. Pretty remarkable that it comes down not only to that race, but how close it was.
From my vantage point on the backstretch, I thought we won, but until you see Texas pop up first on the results, but to come up, 2 100 short, again, I think the goal for Oregon was just to keep their runner close earlier in the day. Their anchor leg had set the American record, not just the collegiate record, but the American record in the indoor 400 meters. So you're talking, that's an ace in your back pocket. So they were kind of running for dear life, keeping it close. Ashley, I felt like, who was our anchor, Ashley Spencer, came off that final turn and had a little bit of a burst to separate herself even more. But Oregon's anchor just wasn't going to give up and outleaned her at the line.
Phyllis Spencer, who had also won the 400, so obviously she was as good as it gets in that event.
No doubt, no doubt. And so again, we talked as a group and as a team afterwards. And at this point, the great thing about our sport is that we get a clean slate, and now we begin the outdoor season.
We should point out you did have 2 national champions, one on the women's side and one on the men's side as well in Albuquerque.
Yes, on the women's side, Caitlin Petrolo set not only the collegiate record, but obviously brought home the national championship title. And she, was asked earlier, the thing that really impressed me about Caitlin was that she had solidified herself at some very high bars, some great performances. So it wasn't just, kind of the one-hit wonder. So that's a big stepping stone, especially in the pole vault, where there's a lot of different parameters that can kind of come into play. So it's going to do nothing but help her confidence going into the outdoor season. On the men's side, Ryan Krauser winning again in the shot put. Like I've said before, sometimes Ryan is his own toughest critic. I know that he wanted to throw well over 70 feet. He had been, hitting some big performances in the training setting. But first and foremost, I mean, to beat your competition by over a meter, over 3 feet, I mean, just says a lot, because right now where the U.S. is in the shot put, I mean, it's pretty deep. And so I know his goals, his aspirations are going to be to make the 2016 Olympic team for the United States, whether it be in the shot or maybe even the disc. So he, again, will look to defend his title outdoors with the upcoming season.
What are the biggest differences indoors, other than the obvious that you're indoors, the running surface, things like that? There are no atmospheric conditions to deal with, I suppose.
Well, our approach is always to be very, very competitive, whether it's in the cross-country indoor outdoor settings. And that sometimes is easier said than done, because with a lot of your distance runners, when they are coming off the cross-country season, they might be a little bit banged up, which, hurt us a little bit in some event areas. But you're still looking to put forth the best product out there. As we shift to the outdoor season, it definitely plays to our strengths, because now you take some of those same contingents that we had for the relay, the men that won the 4x4 indoors for the first time since the early 2000s. You take that women's contingent, and now all of a sudden you line them up in your 4x1 relay and some other, your 200s, some of those events, the 400 hurdles. Those are going to definitely build upon our strengths. We were a little bit hamstrung this year for the first time ever, in 11 years now here at Texas, where the winter just really kind of wreaked havoc on us. And so on those days, we do what we can to kind of go to plan B and go inside the indoor football bubble. But it is different running on turf, and then all of a sudden you go to an indoor meet, and all of a sudden you're expected to kind of amp things up. So just have to be careful with it and be mindful.
Is altitude an issue in Albuquerque? Did your runners talk about that at all?
We didn't really face that, since we didn't, I think the tactical races, you looked in the 3 and the 5,000 with a lot of different people. But since the U.S. championships have been held there before in previous years, I think everybody knew that they were going to have some great performances. It's definitely going to help the sprints and the jumps, which it did.
And now we dovetail into the outdoor season. Texas Relay is one of the great events. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but just quickly, what does this event mean to you and your program, University of Texas?
Well, for us, Texas Relays really kicks off the outdoor season. And the great thing is, again, we can shift gears, and we go from now all the way through the middle of May with the outdoor conference meet, which will be at Texas Tech this year. And then we go to the regional meet up at Arkansas. And then the outdoor championships are not until the second week of June up in Eugene, Oregon. So everybody will get their fair share of track and field, that's for sure.
Well, it's great to see the women's champs get the home track advantage come outdoor, but I know they have great facilities up there.
No doubt, no doubt.